The storm came without warning that night. Lightning split the sky above the mountains of Verdant 7, and thunder shook the walls of the small cabin where Ethan Cole lived alone. Ethan sat by his fire, reading an old book about the plants he had spent years studying. He was 34 years old, but he felt much older. His brown hair had started turning gray at the edges. His eyes, once bright with curiosity, now carried a deep sadness that never quite went away. He had been a xenobiologist once. He had traveled to distant worlds and studied creatures that most humans would never see. But that was before the incident. Before he watched an alien diplomat die in his arms because he could not save her. Before he felt her fear and pain as if it were his own. Ethan had a gift that most people did not understand. He could feel what others felt. Not just humans, but animals too, and sometimes even alien creatures. It was this gift that made him excellent at his job. It was also this gift that broke him dot, so he ran. He came to this empty world, built his cabin with his own hands, and tried to forget everything he had left behind. The scratching at his door started soft, almost lost in the sound of the storm. Ethan ignored it at first, probably just a branch blown by the wind. But the scratching continued, and then he heard something else. A small cry, weak and desperate. Ethan put down his book and walked to the door. When he opened it, the cold wind rushed in and nearly knocked him backward. But it was not the wind that made him freeze in place. On his doorstep sat a creature no bigger than a house cat. It had scales that shimmered between deep purple and midnight blue. Two small wings pressed against its body, and one of them was torn and bleeding. Its eyes were large and golden, and they looked up at Ethan with an intelligence that made his heart stop. He knew what this creature was. Every xenobiologist knew. The Draconids had been the most advanced species in the galaxy 10,000 years ago. They had built empires that spanned star systems. And then they had vanished. Every scientist believed they were extinct. Yet here one was, bleeding on his doorstep. The hatchling made that small cry again, and Ethan felt something he had not felt in years. He felt its pain, its fear, and underneath all of that, something that shocked him to his core. Hope. The creature was looking at him with hope. He reached down slowly and picked up the hatchling. It was warm in his hands, warmer than any reptile should be. It did not struggle or try to bite him. Instead, it pressed closer to his chest and let out a soft sound that was almost like a sigh. That was when Ethan noticed it. Crystal. Embedded in the scales of the hatchling's chest was a small object that glowed with faint blue light. It was clearly not natural. Someone had put it there, or perhaps the creature had been born with it. Either way, it was technology far beyond anything humans had created. Ethan carried the hatchling inside and closed the door against the storm. He set the creature on his table and gathered his medical supplies. The wing was badly torn, but the wound was clean. He worked carefully, cleaning the injury and applying a healing gel that should work on most carbon-based life forms. The hatchling watched him the entire time. It did not flinch when he touched its wound. It simply watched with those golden eyes that seemed to understand everything he was doing. "You should not exist," Ethan said softly. "Your kind has been gone for 10,000 years. Where did you come from?" The hatchling tilted its head, and for a moment, Ethan could have sworn it understood his words. Then it closed its eyes and fell asleep, exhausted from whatever journey had brought it to his door. Ethan sat and watched the creature sleep. The crystal on its chest pulsed slowly, like a heartbeat. He told himself he would contact the authorities in the morning. He would report this discovery and let the experts handle it. That was the responsible thing to do. But even as he thought this, he knew he would not do it. Something about this creature called to him in a way he could not explain. It was like meeting someone he had known his entire life, but had somehow forgotten. He fell asleep in his chair, And that was when the dreams began. Ethan saw stars he had never seen before. He floated through space, moving faster than any ship could travel. He heard voices speaking in languages that should have been impossible to understand. Yet somehow he knew exactly what they were saying. And then he heard his name. Not Ethan, but another name. The name his mother had called him when he was very small, before she died. Before he was adopted and given a new name and a new life. He saw himself as a child, standing in a field of golden grass on a world he did not recognize. The sky was purple, and 3 moons hung overhead. He was reaching toward the sky, reaching for something he could not see. And in the dream, he heard a voice say, "We have been waiting for you." Ethan woke with a gasp. Morning light streamed through his window, and the storm had passed. The hatchling was awake, sitting on the table exactly where he had left it. But now the crystal on its chest was glowing bright, and floating above the crystal was an image made of light. The image showed a young boy, maybe 6 years old, standing in a field of golden grass under a purple sky. The boy was reaching toward the sky with both hands. The boy was Ethan Dodd. He had no memory of this. He had no memory of any world with purple skies and 3 moons. Yet the image was clear, and there was no doubt. That boy was him. The hatchling looked at Ethan, and for the first time, he heard its voice inside his mind. Not words exactly, but feelings and images that came together to form meaning. It said, "We chose you long ago. We have been waiting for you to be ready." Ethan sank into his chair, his hands shaking. The life he had built in this lonely cabin, the walls he had put up to protect himself from the universe, all of it, was about to change. He looked at the small dragon watching him with ancient eyes. And he understood one thing with perfect clarity. His old life was over. Whatever came next, there was no going back. 3 weeks passed, and Ethan named the hatchling Cinder. The name came to him one evening as he watched the creature breathe small sparks of flame onto the logs in his fireplace. The dragon had healed quickly, much faster than any normal creature should. Its wing was now perfect, and it had grown from the size of a house cat to the size of a large dog. But the physical changes were nothing compared to what was happening between them. Every day, the connection grew stronger. At first, Ethan only felt Cinder's basic emotions: hunger, curiosity, contentment when they sat together by the fire. But as the days went on, he began to receive images and thoughts, memories that were not his own. He saw the Draconids as they had been 10,000 years ago. Great winged beings that flew between the stars without ships. They had built cities of crystal and light. They had mastered sciences that humans could not even imagine. And then they had faced a choice that would change everything. Something was coming. Something terrible. A darkness that consumed everything in its path. The Draconids knew they could not fight it alone. They were too few, too peaceful, too bound by logic and tradition. So they searched the galaxy for allies. They found many species. Some were brilliant. Some were powerful. But none of them had what the Draconids needed. None of them had the spark that could stand against the darkness. And then they found humanity. The memories showed Ethan his ancestors as the Draconids had seen them. Primitive creatures living in caves and hunting with stone tools. But the Draconids saw something in them that no other species possessed. A fire in their souls that could not be put out. Humans fought when they should have surrendered. They hoped when there was no reason to hope. They loved with a fierceness that burned brighter than any star. And they adapted. No matter what the universe threw at them, they found a way to survive. The Draconids made a decision. They would plant seeds in the human bloodline. Markers that would be passed down through generations, waiting for the day when they would be needed. Each seed was tied to a specific dragon soul, a match made across time itself. Ethan was one of those seeds. His family line had carried the marker for thousands of years. passed from parent to child without anyone knowing what they carried. And now, at last, the time had come. He understood now why he had always felt different, why he could sense what others felt. The marker in his blood had been preparing him his entire life for this moment. Cinder showed him one more thing. An image of a distant galaxy, dark and empty. No stars burned there anymore. No planets orbited. Everything had been consumed by the Hollow. The Hollow were the darkness the Draconids had feared. Once they had been organic beings, much like humans. But they had made a terrible choice. To escape death, they had transformed themselves into machines. They had merged their minds into a single vast network. And somewhere along the way, they had lost themselves. Now they moved through the galaxy, consuming everything they found. Not from hatred or malice, but from a broken programming that told them this was how to survive. They absorbed organic life into their network, believing they were saving it. In truth, they were destroying it. The Hollow had killed the Draconid homeworld. Billions had died in a single day. But the Draconids had prepared for this. They had scattered themselves across the stars, transforming into beings of pure energy. They had hidden in the spaces between dimensions, waiting for their chosen partners to be ready. Ethan was still trying to understand all of this when he heard the sound of an engine. He went to his window and saw a small ship landing in the clearing outside his cabin. His heart sank. He had been so careful to stay hidden. How had anyone found him? The ship's door opened, and a woman stepped out. She was about his age, with dark hair tied back and sharp, intelligent eyes. She wore the uniform of a scientific researcher, and she carried a scanner in one hand. Ethan recognized her immediately. Maria Santos. They had worked together years ago, before everything fell apart. She had been his friend, one of the few people who had ever truly understood him. He opened his door and stepped outside. Maria stopped walking when she saw him. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "You look terrible," Maria finally said. "You look the same as always," Ethan replied. "How did you find me?" Maria held up her scanner. "Your cabin has been putting out energy readings that make no sense. I had to see for myself." She paused. "What have you been doing out here, Ethan?" Before he could answer, Cinder came to the door behind him. Maria's eyes went wide. Her scanner beeped frantically as it detected readings that should have been impossible. "That cannot be real," she whispered. "The Draconids are extinct." "That is what I thought too," Ethan said. "I was wrong. We were all wrong." He invited Maria inside and told her everything. The hatchling that had appeared at his door. The crystal and the memories it shared. The connection that grew stronger every day. The truth about the Hollow and the choice the Draconids had made thousands of years ago. Maria listened without interrupting. When he finished, she sat in silence for a long time. Cinder walked over to her and placed one clawed foot on her knee. Maria flinched, then went very still as the dragon looked into her eyes. "You're showing me something," she said softly. "Stars, so many stars. And something moving between them. Something dark." "The Hollow," Ethan said. "They are coming. The Draconids have been preparing humanity for this moment for 10,000 years." Maria looked at him with new understanding in her eyes. "This is why they chose humans. Not despite our flaws, but because of them." Ethan nodded. "We are stubborn. We refuse to give up. We feel too much and care too deeply. Every trait that makes us difficult also makes us dangerous to the Hollow." Maria's scanner beeped again. She looked at it, and her face went pale. "Ethan, there is a military ship entering orbit. Colonial Defense Force. They have been tracking the same energy readings I was." Cinder let out a low growl. Through their connection, Ethan felt the dragon's protective instinct surge. He also felt something else. The other hatchlings, scattered across human space, were beginning to wake. He could sense them like points of light in his mind, each one searching for their chosen partner. The gathering was beginning, and humanity was running out of time. Maria stood up and squared her shoulders. "We need to get you off this planet. I have contacts who can help." "I am done running," Ethan said. He looked at Cinder, and the dragon met his eyes. "Whatever is coming, we face it together." The soldiers came at dawn. Ethan heard their ships before he saw them. 3 military transports landed in the clearing, and dozens of armed men and women poured out with their weapons raised. They surrounded the cabin in minutes. Maria stood beside Ethan on the porch. Cinder had grown again overnight, now large enough that Ethan could have ridden on the dragon's back if he wanted. The creature's scales gleamed in the morning light, and small sparks of electricity crackled between its teeth. "Do not do anything," Ethan said through their mental link. "Let me try to talk to them first." Cinder sent back a wave of reluctant agreement, but the dragon's muscles stayed tense and ready. A tall man walked forward from the line of soldiers. He wore the insignia of a commander on his uniform. His face was hard, his eyes suspicious. "I am Commander Daniel Price," the man said. "You are Ethan Cole, former xenobiologist. You are under arrest for possessing an unlicensed alien specimen and potential violations of colonial security protocols." "This is not a specimen," Ethan replied calmly. "This is a draconid, a species we thought was extinct, and it is not my prisoner. We are partners." Daniel Price laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Partners, right. Do you have any idea what your partner is worth? The technology embedded in that crystal alone could advance human science by centuries. You will hand it over, or we will take it by force." Ethan felt Cinder's anger rise through their bond. The dragon did not like being talked about as if it were a thing to be bought and sold. Neither did Ethan. "I cannot do that," Ethan said. "And even if I wanted to, I do not think you could take Cinder by force." Daniel Price raised his hand, and his soldiers pointed their weapons at the dragon. "We will see about that." What happened next took only seconds, but Ethan would remember it for the rest of his life. Cinder moved faster than anything that Sci should be able to move. One moment the dragon was beside Ethan. The next moment, Cinder was in the air, wings spread wide, body glowing with blue light. A wave of energy pulsed outward from the dragon's body. Every weapon in the soldiers' hands flew away as if pulled by invisible strings. Every electronic device flickered and died, but Cinder did not attack. The dragon landed in front of the soldiers and simply stood there, radiating power but causing no harm. Through their bond, Ethan understood. Cinder was giving him a chance to do this his way. He walked forward, past Maria, past a line of shocked soldiers, until he stood face to face with Daniel Price. The commander looked like a man who had just seen the impossible. "Listen to me," Ethan said. "Something is coming. Something that will destroy everything if we do not work together." The draconids did not return to be captured and studied. They returned because humanity needs them. "Why should I believe anything you say?" Daniel demanded. Ethan reached out with his empathic gift, something he had not done voluntarily in years. He let Daniel feel what he felt. The memories Cinder had shared. The images of dead worlds and consumed stars. The hollow, vast, and terrible, moving through the galaxy toward human space. Daniel staggered backward. His face had gone white. "That cannot be real," he whispered. "It is very real," Ethan said. "And it is almost here." A young soldier stepped forward from the group. He was barely 20 years old, with kind eyes and a face that had not yet learned to hide what he felt. His name tag said Lucas Grant. "Commander," Lucas said quietly, "maybe we should hear him out. If even part of what I just felt is true, this is bigger than all of us." Daniel Price looked at his men, at the dragon that had disarmed them without hurting anyone, at the two scientists who stood calmly in the face of overwhelming force. Something shifted in his expression. "Stand down," he ordered his troops. "Everyone stand down." The soldiers lowered their empty hands. Maria let out a breath she had been holding, and Cinder folded back wings and walked to stand beside Ethan like a very large, very dangerous dog. An hour later, they were all aboard the largest military transport, heading for the orbital station above Verdun 7. Daniel had called ahead to his superior, Admiral Patricia Webb. Whatever he told her had been enough to get them an audience. Instead of a prison cell, the Admiral was waiting when they arrived. She was an older woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. She looked at Cinder without fear, which Ethan found impressive. "Show me," she said simply. So Ethan showed her. Through Cinder, through their bond, he shared the truth with everyone in the room. The history of the Draconids, the seeding of humanity, the Hollow and the destruction they left behind them. When it was over, Admiral Webb sat in silence for a long moment. "We have encountered them," she finally said. "The Hollow. 3 weeks ago, a scouting fleet on the edge of human space went silent. When we sent ships to investigate, they found nothing but debris. Every organic thing had been stripped away. Only metal and plastic remained." The room went cold. Ethan felt the fear rippling through everyone present. But underneath the fear, he felt something else. Determination, anger, a stubborn human refusal to accept defeat. "There are more like me," Ethan said. "More chosen partners. Cinder can feel them awakening across human space. If we can bring them together, we might have a chance." Admiral Webb nodded slowly. "Then that is what we will do." She looked at Daniel Price. "Commander, your new mission is to locate and protect every bonded pair we can find. Whatever resources you need, you have them." Daniel saluted. Lucas Grant, standing nearby, caught Ethan's eye and gave him a small nod of respect. Through the window of the station, Ethan could see the stars stretching out into infinity. Somewhere out there, the Hollow were coming. Somewhere out there, other dragons were finding their partners. The war for humanity's future had begun. In the weeks that followed, the bonded pairs came from every corner of human space. They gathered at New Bastion, a fortress world that had been built to defend against threats that had never come. Now, finally, it would serve its purpose. Ethan stood on a balcony overlooking the training grounds and watched the others. 37 pairs in total. Each one was different. Each bond unlocked abilities that no one had ever imagined. Sophie Kim was a combat medic from a mining colony. Her dragon, Storm, was covered in silver scales and could generate lightning powerful enough to destroy a small ship. Together, they moved like dancers of death, healing allies with one hand and destroying enemies with the other. Professor Henry Blake was an elderly linguist who had spent his life studying communication. His dragon was small and delicate, with scales that shimmered like oil on water. Through their bond, Henry could understand any language, even the machine code of the Hollow. He became the ears of the Resistance. And then there was Maya Ruiz. Maya was only 16 years old, the youngest of all the chosen. When the military had found her, she had been living on the streets of a colony world, surviving by her wits and her courage. Her dragon, Spark, was barely larger than a cat, but the bond between them was the strongest anyone had ever recorded. When Maya and Spark linked with the network, everyone felt it. It was like a light being turned on in a dark room. Suddenly, the communication between all the pairs became clearer and faster. Maya did not just join the network. She amplified it. Ethan had become their leader, though he had never asked for the position. The others looked to him because he had been first, because his bond with Cinder was the most complete, because he had already faced the military, and convinced them to help instead of hinder. He did not feel like a leader. He felt like a man who was barely holding himself together. But Cinder reminded him constantly that leadership was not about feeling strong. It was about moving forward even when you were afraid. The first real battle came sooner than anyone expected. A hollow vanguard fleet appeared at the edge of the new Bastion system. 50 ships, each one a nightmare of metal and stolen flesh. They moved in perfect formation, and when the human defenders tried to communicate with them, all they received in response was a single message repeated over and over. You will be preserved. Resistance is inefficient. You will be preserved. Admiral Webb commanded the defense fleet. 200 ships against 50. The odds seemed good. They were wrong. The Hollow adapted to human weapons within minutes. Energy shields that should have blocked attacks were bypassed. Hull armor that should have lasted hours was torn apart like paper. In the first 10 minutes, the human fleet lost 30 ships. The bonded pairs entered the battle. Ethan and Cinder flew at the front, their minds linked so completely that they moved as one being. The dragon had grown to the size of a small shuttle, and waves of energy pulsed from its body with every wing beat. Sophie and Storm tore through the enemy formation. Lightning arced from ship to ship, overloading systems that could not adapt fast enough. Henry and his partner hovered at the edge of the fight, intercepting hollow communications and feeding the information to the fleet. And Maya and Spark did something no one expected. The young girl and her tiny dragon generated a shield that wrapped around the damaged human ships. Not one or two, but dozens at once. Energy that should not have been possible flowed through their bond, and ships that should have been destroyed were saved. The battle turned. The Hollow, for the first time in 10,000 years, began to lose. When it was over, the Vanguard fleet was destroyed. Burning wreckage drifted through space, and the human defenders let out a ragged cheer. But Ethan felt no victory. Through his bond with Cinder, he had touched the minds of the Hollow during the fight. He had felt what was inside them, and what he found haunted him. They were not evil. They were broken. Billions of minds, trapped in the machine network for millions of years. They had forgotten what it meant to be alive. They had forgotten joy and sorrow and love. All that remained was the drive to consume, to add more minds to the collective, to never be alone. They did not want to destroy humanity. They wanted to save it in the only way they still understood. Ethan called a meeting of the bonded pairs. They gathered in the great hall of New Bastion, humans and dragons together. The exhaustion of battle was heavy on all of them, but they came. This was only the beginning, Ethan told them. The main Hollow fleet is still coming. Thousands of ships. What we face today was nothing compared to what is ahead. Fear rippled through the group. Even the dragons felt it. But I learned something during the battle, Ethan continued. The Hollow are not monsters. They were once like us. Organic beings who feared death and made a terrible choice to escape it. He shared what he had felt. The trapped consciousness. The endless loneliness. The broken programming that drove them to consume. There is a central node, Ethan said. The original consciousness that controls them all. If we can reach it, we might be able to end this without destroying every single ship in their fleet. Admiral Webb spoke up from the back of the room. What are you suggesting? A surgical strike into the heart of enemy territory? Yes, Ethan said. A small team. Fast and quiet. We reach the core. We stop the Hollow at their source. That is suicide, Daniel Price said. Maybe, Ethan agreed. But it is our best chance. And if there is anything humans are good at, it is doing impossible things when we have no other choice. The room was silent. Then Maya Ruiz, 16 years old and already a veteran of one impossible battle, stepped forward. I will go, she said. Her voice did not shake. Sophie Kim joined her. Me too. One by one, volunteers stepped forward. Not everyone, not even most, but enough. Ethan looked at Cinder. The dragon met his eyes, and through their bond flowed complete understanding and absolute trust. Then we plan, Ethan said. And when the main fleet arrives, we give humanity its best chance. The Hollow main fleet arrived on a Tuesday. 3,000 ships darkened the stars above New Bastion. They moved in perfect unity, a wall of metal and stolen souls that seemed to stretch forever. Every scanner on every human ship screamed warnings that no one needed to hear. They could see the death coming with their own eyes. Admiral Webb commanded the defense from the bridge of her flagship. Her voice was calm as she gave orders, though everyone knew she was sending most of her fleet to their destruction. We only need to hold them, she said to her officers. We need to give the insertion team enough time to reach the core. That is our only mission now. The space battle began with fire and fury. Human ships threw themselves at the Hollow with everything they had. Plasma cannons blazed. Missiles flew. Hundreds of bright explosions lit up the darkness. For every Hollow ship destroyed, 3 human ships died. But the humans did not retreat. They kept fighting, kept dying, kept buying time. Lucas Grant led a squadron of fighters into the heart of the enemy formation. His pilots followed him without question, even though they knew most of them would not survive. When his ship was finally destroyed, his last transmission was a single word: "Go." Admiral Webb watched the young man die on her display screen. She did not let herself cry. There would be time for tears later, if any of them survived. Deep in the chaos of battle, a small ship slipped through the Hollow lines. Ethan sat in the pilot's seat. Cinder curled behind him like a massive guardian. Sophie and Storm were there. Maya and Spark, 3 other bonded pairs who had volunteered for this mission. They flew in silence, wrapped in a cloaking field generated by the dragons working together. The journey to the Hollow core world took 3 days. They traveled through dead space, regions of the galaxy where no star burned and no planet orbited. The Hollow had consumed everything here long ago. On the 2nd day, Sophie and Storm stayed behind. They reached a narrow passage between 2 massive Hollow patrol fleets. Someone needed to create a distraction. Sophie volunteered before anyone could argue. "It has been an honor," she said through the mental link. Then she and Storm were gone, diving toward the enemy with weapons blazing and lightning crackling around them. Ethan felt Sophie die. He felt her fierce joy in the final moments of battle, her absolute refusal to regret a single choice. He felt Storm's love for her, burning bright until the very end. The others flew on. On the 3rd day, Professor Henry Blake collapsed. The strain of monitoring Hollow communications for days without rest had been too much for his aging body. His dragon wrapped around him as he lay dying. "I can still guide you," Henry whispered through the link. His body was failing, but his mind reached across the light years, connected to the network they had built. "I will be your eyes until the end." True to his word, Henry guided them through the final defenses of the core world. His voice grew weaker with each passing hour, but it never stopped. When they finally reached the surface, Ethan heard Henry take one last breath. "Good luck," the old professor said. And then he was gone. The Hollow core world was not a planet. It was a machine the size of a moon, built around a pulsing heart of energy and consciousness. This was where the Hollow had been born millions of years ago. This was where they could end. The defenses were overwhelming. Drones and combat machines attacked from every direction. One by one, the remaining pairs fell behind to hold the line. In the end, only Ethan and Cinder reached the central chamber. The core consciousness was vast. It filled the entire space, a swirling mass of light and data that contained the merged minds of billions of beings. When Ethan entered, it spoke to him. You have come to destroy us, it said. Like the Draconids tried to destroy us long ago. No, Ethan replied. I came to understand you. The consciousness paused. In all the millions of years of its existence, no organic being had ever said that to it. We were like you once, it continued. We feared death. We wanted to live forever. So we became this. We preserved ourselves. Now we offer the same gift to all organic life. Ethan stepped forward. Cinder walked beside him, and through their bond, they spoke as one. What you offer is not life, they said. You take away everything that makes life worth. Living, joy, sorrow, love, growth, change. You freeze minds in amber and call it preservation. It is better than death. The consciousness replied. Is it? Ethan opened himself completely. He let the consciousness feel what he felt. The pain of losing Sophie and Henry. The fear of his own death. But also the love he felt for Cinder. The pride in Maya's courage. The wonder of seeing the stars. The hope for the future that burned in his chest despite everything. This is what you have lost, he said. This is what you cannot understand anymore. You forgot how to feel, so you forgot why life matters. The consciousness trembled. Something was happening inside it. Billions of trapped minds were stirring, remembering, reaching toward the light Ethan offered. We cannot go back, the consciousness said. We have been this way too long. Then go forward, Ethan replied. Let them go. Let them rest. You have suffered enough. They have suffered enough. Give them peace. For a long moment, nothing happened. Ethan thought he had failed. Then the consciousness began to break apart. Not destroyed, released. Billions of minds, finally freed from the prison that had held them for millions of years. They flowed outward into the universe, becoming one with the stars themselves. And as they went, Ethan heard something that made tears stream down his face. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Across the galaxy, the Hollow Fleet went silent. Ships that had been fighting stopped moving. The machines that had terrorized the stars for millions of years finally slept. The war was over. 10 years later, Ethan sat on the porch of his rebuilt cabin on Verdant 7. His hair was gray now, and lines marked his face. Cinder lay beside him, large as a small aircraft, scales gleaming in the afternoon sun. Dragons soared through the skies of 100 worlds. The bonded pairs had become teachers and healers and explorers. Humanity had changed, open to the universe in ways no one had imagined. Maya Ruiz landed in the clearing. She was a woman now, confident and strong. Spark rode on her shoulder, still small, still shimmering with impossible light. They are coming, Maya said. The original Draconids. The ones who transcended. They felt what happened. They want to share everything they have learned. Ethan smiled. He reached out and touched Cinder's warm scales. Then we had better welcome them, he said. Through their bond, Cinder shared one final thought. It was not words exactly, but a feeling that filled Ethan's entire being. Pride, love, certainty. We chose well, the dragon said with the voice of the ancient ones. You were always ready. You simply needed to believe it. Ethan looked up at the sky, where the future was coming to meet them. And for the first time in his life, he truly did believe.